I thought it was very interesting when it was announced that Matt Stafford was going to the Rams. The over-under for the Detroit Lions did not change, and the over-under for the Rams win total changed only half a game. You are seeing the downside to Matt Stafford. Third straight game with a pick six. He misses open throws. He can be erratic. He's inconsistent. He isn't always, in the biggest games, the best quarterback. Once again, Aaron Rodgers looks like a different level of quarterback. The Rams and Stafford are not completely healthy, but that's not an excuse because the Green Bay Packers have been the most injury-depleted football team in the National Football League, I would argue, for the last 3 weeks. They won missing 11 starters in Arizona. They could have won in Minnesota, missing their top tight end, running back, left tackle, corner, and linebackers, Adarius Smith. I don't want to hear injuries. I like Matt Stafford. But it's remarkable how he was sold as the savior of the Rams, and Carson Wentz was much maligned going to the Colts. Is there that big of a difference? Wentz is bigger, has as good an arm, is more athletic, and like Stafford, makes the reckless mistake. I like Matt Stafford, but this idea that he was going to be the savior for the LA Rams, I like him. He's better than Jared Goff. But what you're seeing is what Lion fans saw for years. Great talent, not a super athlete, not wildly mobile. He's not going to spin it like Aaron Rodgers. He's not going to move around like Kyler Murray. He's clearly not the winner or pre-snap as good as Tom Brady. He's an upgrade over Jared Goff. But the idea there's this massive gap between Matt Stafford, who the media thought would change the Rams, and Carson Wentz, who everybody thought was a dubious acquisition by the Colts. I think Stafford's slightly better, but I don't see the huge gap. Aaron Rodgers, missing 5 of his best players, was clearly playing at a different level with a bad toe and limping around than Matt Stafford. You know, sometimes there's things you don't want to hear, but you have to come to terms with them. Right now in the AFC, New England Patriots look like the best team. There's a lot of good football in the AFC, but everybody's got a major liability. The Ravens secondary, the Browns quarterback, the Steelers offensive line, Cincinnati Bengals lack of experience, the Buffalo Bills run game, and pass blocking offensive line. No team in the AFC, including the Kansas City Chiefs, checks more playoff boxes than the New England Patriots. Nobody. Coach, best in the league. Coordinators, fantastic. Defense gives up few big plays. Disciplined, few penalties, wins time of possession, top 10 offensive line, run games top 5 in the NFL. Their quarterback doesn't make the big mistake. They don't have the over-the-top offensive component. But let's be honest. You start looking around the NFL, and the Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes relationships are rare. That is rare. I look at New England and the AFC, and if there's 8 boxes you have to check to win a conference, they check 7. I'm not even sure Kansas City does. The only one they don't check in New England is quick touchdowns over the top, which again is a luxury. It's not common. DeAndre Hopkins in Arizona, Stephon Diggs, that is uncommon. That is not common. So you got to come to terms with it. I know it drives you nuts, but Belichick once again may have lost the divorce in the first year, but by year 2, if you told me Brady ends up facing Belichick in a Super Bowl, would you be surprised? Not one bit. Ho, 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 gentlemen. The holidays came early with Manscaped, the leading men's hygiene brand. They just launched new products, including their all-new ultra-premium body wash, 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. The Lawnmower 4.0, the trimmer, helps reduce nicks, reduce the risk of ingrown hairs, reduces the risk of, how should I say this, grooming accidents. It's time to give yourself the gift of beautiful skin, hair this holiday season. Go to manscaped.com, use the code Colin for 20% off, free shipping, with the code Colin, COLIN, at manscaped.com. Every guy out there needs to be Manscaped. Add that to your wish list this season. All right, it's my buddy Mike Silver, covering the NFL forever. Great sources, great mind. I love him. So let's start with this. It is amazing to me as I sat there on Sunday and watched. You know, to be a great quarterback in this league is so rare. You're either too young or too limited, and you watch the Aaron Rodgers and you watch Brady, and you're like, it's so rare. It's even the great ones. Like Herbert's a huge young talent. He struggles. He still gets lost. But you know what's remarkable in this? This is where Aaron Rodgers is different. So I'll get to Rodgers in a second because I think Green Bay is the best team in the league. But Brady with a healthy Gronk, Mike, is so different. When you give him a decent running game and a healthy Gronk, that's his life preserver. He is not the same quarterback, the GOAT, without Gronk. And I watched them and I thought, why is he fighting for Gronk? It doesn't matter about Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, AB. Gronk's healthy. He's a completely different player.
And, you know, Byron Leftwich is quietly doing some stuff over there that I don't know if the casual fan notices. And honestly, I don't know if NFL owners who have openings are going to notice. But, you know, we kind of underestimate Byron Leftwich collectively. We did it as a player. He's got that horrible long release and he's kind of slow and, you know, he just looked like a plodding guy. So he had his moments as a quarterback, but a lot of times people thought, you know, he's just, you know, he's not my kind of quarterback. And now as a coach, you know, Bruce Arians is telling us, he's like, look, I'm not running the offense. Byron Leftwich is. I'm not even in the meetings. He's doing all this. And obviously they have Tom Brady, and obviously they have all that talent you just referred to. And yes, Gronk makes a massive difference. But we've seen Tom Brady not look awesome during various times since he's been on Tampa. Byron Leftwich is doing a lot of this, and I hope people can look beyond the obvious and pay attention to that. And yeah, when you talk about Rodgers, I mean, I'm watching that game Sunday and I'm thinking, well, we're hearing suddenly about how hurt Matthew Stafford is. And I'm not trying to doubt that he is, but it's weird that after a bye week, we're now hearing about all these ailments. And every time Stafford does something wrong, they're saying, well, he's clearly not right. Well, we know Aaron Rodgers isn't right. He's coming off of COVID. He has a broken pinky toe. And he's taken a shot for it that seems to wear off during games. And he looks amazing. So I'm not saying that every other injured quarterback should be able to do that. But you're right. It's supernatural sometimes.
No, I mean, Aaron is, you know, it's he didn't practice. And he comes out. And it's funny. I said this about Stafford. Is Stafford goes to the Rams. He's a savior. Wentz goes to the Colts, it's a dubious contract. Wentz is bigger, Wentz is stronger, Wentz is more athletic, and they both have a propensity to be reckless. But it doesn't stick to Stafford. It sticks to Wentz. And I was watching Stafford, and I never forget this. He goes from Detroit to the Rams, the over-under goes up half a game. Vegas didn't buy into this messiah. And I like Matt. I really do. And maybe he's hurt. But come on, give me a break. This whole league's hurt. I mean, Trent Dilfer used to tell me this years ago. He's like, October 1st, everyone's hurt. Nobody's healthy.
Especially him. Yeah.
Right.
And I'll take it even a different level because it's only recently, and by recently, I'd say the last year or so, that people are even doing this to Wentz. For a long time, he could do no wrong. To go back to gambling, which I don't usually do, you look at the MVP odds on Carson Wentz at any given time since 2017, and it's always like, huh? Like, are you watching the same thing I am? He's so highly regarded, and so I'd throw Goff into the equation, and it's not a popular thing to do given how bad his team is and how rough it has been for him this season with very few weapons. But Matthew Stafford just did something that hasn't been done since Matt Schaub. He's thrown pick sixes in 3 consecutive games. And when Schaub was doing it that year, it was like the world was combusting. And a guy who'd had a pretty good career until then, it was like, oh my God, this is a nightmare. Stafford does a lot of good things, but he's now doing the things that the Rams gave up so much for, just to rid themselves of the fact that Jared Goff was doing those things turnover wise. And Jared Goff did a lot of good things there too. And so I think it goes back to the first thing you said. It's not a perfect, we want it to just be like, oh, this quarterback's there, so now it's always good. And it's very rare that happens. Russell Wilson, for most of his career, has been that way. I think Lamar has shown vestiges of it. Josh Allen has shown vestiges of it. Deshaun Watson, when he has played, has shown vestiges of it. Mahomes, until recently, has been like that. But it's not a normal thing for someone to just always look like they're in control.
Yeah, well, sometimes I remember talking to Chris Carter, the Hall of Fame wide receiver, about this. He said, when you have a gift, it could be your singing voice. You're going to sing in the shower. When you have a gift, you're going to want to show it. Stafford has a gift. He has a Jay Cutler arm. High school, people were like, oh, it's an NFL arm in high school.
Yeah.
And because of that, and Josh Allen has this, when you have a great arm, Brady has a good arm. But Brady, realizing he has a good arm, is really consumed with his mechanics.
Right.
When you have a great arm, there's a propensity to get a little sloppy. Mahomes does it. Josh Allen does it. Stafford does it. Get very loose.
Brett Favre did it. Yeah.
Yep. You get very loose.
Did it. Brett Favre did it. Randall Cunningham did it. As great as some of the moments that those people have provided us. Eli Manning is a guy who tried to force a lot of balls in there because he knew he had that arm. And so, yeah, it's an evolution. And listen, as much as I talked about last year, how, okay, well, that whole Brady Belichick thing, it's kind of put to bed, given that Brady just went to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and won a Super Bowl. Brady was also coached in a very, very good way that way, right? Belichick and certainly Josh McDaniels. Like, let's give these guys all that credit too. Charlie Weiss before that, Bill O'Brien for a while. But when it's pounded into you that you don't have to wow us with your gift, the singing in the shower equivalent, then that probably helps too.
Yeah. So speaking of Belichick, my takeaway is, if I gave you, Mike, 8 boxes that it usually takes to get to a conference championship, excellent coaching, generally top-end coordinating, health, the ability to run the ball and control the clock, a defense that is at least situationally good, hopefully you generate a pass rush. You don't need big sacks, but make the other quarterback uncomfortable.
Quarterback play.
Yes. Quarterback play doesn't have to be great. Joe Flacco's an example.
Right.
But it has to be.
It helps.
It helps. And then I would say it also helps to be able to be dynamic, occasionally getting over the top touchdowns. New England, if there's 8 boxes, check 7. And they may be so good at the 7. I look at them today, Mike, and if you told me 401k, you got to bet it in somebody. I like Buffalo. I hate their offensive line. They have at times abandoned the run game. There was a moment in the Bills-Saints game where Josh Allen, on back-to-back plays, had he been Matt Ryan, would have lost 8 yards twice back-to-back. He runs, makes positive gains. And I thought to myself, like, we just don't understand how bad the Bills' O-line is because of how gifted Josh Allen is.
Right.
And I look at New England today, Mike, and if I told you New England against Aaron Rodgers, New England against Brady in the Super Bowl, I wouldn't be shocked.
I would have until, and I know Tennessee was depleted, but until I saw what they did to Tennessee, I would have probably tried to throw some water on that. And they have a stretch coming up with Bills and Colts, and we're going to find out more. But it's not far-fetched. Now, I brought back my column 32 Questions, previously at Yahoo and NFL.com. Now it's at Bally Sports. And I had to rank somebody one last week, that first week, and I ranked the Ravens one, and we talked about this on TV. But I kind of trust them in the end. They play so many close games. They tend to be really clutch. You know, you and I feel very similarly about Lamar and the steps he's even taking now. They've had some injuries that are real significant. Marcus Peters, you know, I do believe that Don Martindale will find a way to get that defense in playoff shape. And so that would be the team if I had to look at the AFC. But you're right. We may not know what's going on in the AFC till, you know, early January, you know, because it's just a weird year. And, you know, we thought the Chiefs were like, bleh, and now you're kind of looking at them going, well, that whole division's bunched up and they've won a couple of close ones and they do have Mahomes. So, you know, I don't know. We were both feeling pretty good about the Colts, I think, going into Sunday. And then, not like they just completely laid an egg, but it was weird. I mean, their identity recently has been Jonathan Taylor. And it's like something happened, like they forgot he was on the team for like an hour. It was really weird.
Yeah. You know, I want to ask you about a team, the San Francisco 49ers, that you know well. So we both know John Lynch. I don't know Kyle particularly well, but I know John really, really well. I covered him. He used to work at Fox.
Yeah.
And you know, we talk about all these young quarterbacks. And Mac Jones, I think it was understood, that was the best landing spot. Whoever went to New England, that's a good spot. You're not asking him to do it. Mac doesn't have to overcome anything. Right. Everybody else is overcoming something. But the winner in this may be Trey Lance, because like Mahomes, he's got this kind of accomplished veteran. He's not playing. The system's fairly complex. And I watched the Niners kind of dismantle with some injuries of their own Minnesota. And it happens every year, Mike. A team pops like a week or two before Thanksgiving. They get a little healthier. And I watched because I think Minnesota's really good. I think they're really good. And I watched the Niners.
Just beat the Packers, yeah.
And I watched the Niners. Are the Niners that team? Do you buy them next 6 weeks?
I do. And listen, I basically kicked dirt on them 3 weeks ago because I went to watch that game against the Cardinals where Colt McCoy was, you know, doing Joe Montana things on that field. And I love Colt, but I don't think it was just because Colt suddenly became Joe Montana. They didn't look like they had any juice. They had gotten some guys back. It just didn't look good. And I thought, you know what? Everything I thought all offseason and all season is wrong. They're not good. I thought going into the season they were the class of the NFC and clearly the class of that division. And obviously I was wrong about the Cardinals, so that's a separate topic. But I was sure. And then after that game, I was like, okay, got it wrong. Kind of like what you're saying about the Bills right now and what could be happening. But like, I got that one wrong. And then as soon as that happened, they played the Rams and looked different. And it continues to look different. So, I think they're the best football team in California as we speak, which is weird because the Chargers were coming off a big win and the Rams had a good start. But I think they could be that team. And you know, when you go back to Trey Lance, like, let me take you on the whole roller coaster. So they make that trade, which is a dramatic thing to do. They gave up so much. And I know I've talked to Kyle and he was influenced by Stafford and not getting Stafford and what the Rams keep doing. And he's like, we got to do something big. The Seahawks do it. We got to do it. But then I believe he talked himself out of Mac Jones. I stand by that reporting, even though the outcome didn't, you know, end up being that way. And there are good reasons to talk yourself into Trey Lance. Very, very good reasons. And then what happened in training camp was the first week, they freaked. They were like, well, Jimmy's having his best camp, but like Trey Lance is getting it so fast. He's so smart. They knew he was smart. They just were like, he's crazy smart. Like, we've never seen this. And so about a week into camp, they were like, the plan is Jimmy, but maybe we just have to play him now. And then what happened to Trey Lance after that was what happens to many, many, many young players, which is not some dramatic, like, just like, okay, well, look, it's hard. Kyle's offense is hard. The NFL is hard. He's leveling off a little bit. And when he
Yeah.
started to level off, it got in his head a little bit. He wasn't as loose. He wasn't as confident. Meanwhile, Jimmy, to his credit, ascended and was giving them the best they'd seen of him. And so instead of, we got to play Trey Lance now, it was the original plan, which is play Jimmy, try to do the Mahomes thing. And so, yes, the answer is I think they're good. I do think he's in a great situation, Trey Lance, and I do think it could end up being really, really special.
Yeah, and I don't see a need or a priority. It's almost like when Andrew Wiggins went to the Warriors, he was seen as a trade piece, and then all of a sudden you're like, you know, he gives us 24 points about every third game. Why don't we just keep him?
Yeah.
I think with Garoppolo, you look at it and you're like, you know, there's some limitations, but when the running game's gelling, Mike, Garoppolo leads you down the field. He does.
Well, I mean, he is very, very loved in that locker room as a player and as a guy. And he is obviously tough, though he's, unfortunately for him, been injured a lot. I know in some ways he's not the perfect quarterback for Kyle at all. I could do a whole segment on that. But in one way, he is the absolute perfect quarterback for Kyle. And I've talked to a lot of players about this there and coaches. He can handle the venting, the tantrums, the negativity. Kyle's a perfectionist. Kyle gets angry during games. Kyle gets angry during practice. He can get out after you, and some people don't handle that well.
That's
Jimmy,
right.
because of how he's made up, he's fine. It bounces right off him. And, that there's something to be said for that. And listen, he does throw one of the most beautiful balls with the best releases in this sport. It's not, there's no debate about the physical talent. I know people go, well, is he no, he really throws one of the elite balls.